Hi. One of the things that I noticed that we need to look at more carefully are relationships with fractions, decimals, and percents. Just a conversion chart. We talked about this a little bit in class today again. We've been talking about it for a while, but just so you can maybe sum it up a little bit of a different way. I wanted to just give you a couple examples of just the decimals. So if I give you, for example, 0.3 and 0.24, and let's go with 0.04. These are ones that I think would be really helpful to think about. So in all of these cases, what you want to do, what I do every time, is I just say this number out loud. What's this number? 3/10. So 3/10. Again, just say the decimal number out loud. What is it? 24 hundredths. So this is the start of it, 24 hundredths, but then I have to ask myself, can I simplify this fraction? So in this case here, I could say that I could divide them both by 2, the numerator and denominator. So I get 12/50. They're still even, both of them, so I can divide by 2 again. So I get 6/25. If I take, here's another example, 4 hundredths, so the 4 hundredths, and both even, both can be divided by 2, and if you think maybe too that they both could be divided by 4, then I'd have 1/25. So I would say the key is to say the decimal out loud to get to the original fraction. Take just a second then and ask yourself, can I simplify it? So now let's be able to go from any of these three columns from one to the other. So we've just talked about decimals to fractions, so now let's do fractions to decimals. So if I have something like 4/5, if I can get it to a denominator of 10 or 100 or 1,000, I'm all set. So, all right, these are equivalent fractions. So if I multiply the denominator by 2, I have to multiply the numerator by 2, and I get 8/10. Or it would have been 80 hundredths. So I could have either had 0.8 or I could have had 0.80. Now the awesome thing, and some people have been talking about this a lot in class, as soon as I get my denominator of 100, this is my percent. So it's 80%. So great. So let's take another fraction here. We've seen this one a couple times this week. Let's go with 5/8. Now, if I try to do a denominator of 10, it's not going to work. It's not going to get me anywhere. Denominator of 100, I can try that. But a denominator of 1,000 is going to be really the most helpful. So let's see. If I now do a denominator of 1,000, rather, it goes in 125 times. So I have to multiply my numerator times 125. And I can use a calculator for that, and I get 625. So I'm going to read this number out loud to get it as a decimal. 625 thousandths. So 625 tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Totally works. So remember what we were just talking about earlier, is that once I get this over 100, the numerator is my percent. So I'm going to divide this by 10 to get to 100. And if I divide the denominator by 10, I have to divide the numerator by 10, and I get 62.5. So that means it is 62.5%. Let's try the little bit of a different direction then. So if I have, say, 38%, I know that that's 38 out of 100. So there is my fraction. And if I know it's 38 hundredths as a fraction, then my decimal is going to be 38 hundredths. You'd still have to simplify this here because you can divide both the numerator and denominator by 2 to get to 19/50ths, but that is all you have to do. So again, this is out of 100, this 38%, so that gives me that fraction, which then gives me the decimal, which is so awesome. Okay, let's take another one. Let's take 98%. So now that's 98 out of 100, or 98 hundredths, 0.98. I'm going to do 2 more, but I'm going to wait until, I'm going to give you some time after I write the number down for you to think about it and say it out loud to yourself or write it down on a piece of paper. Okay, so let's say here that I have 0.68. What I would do first is I would say this out loud. I'm sorry, excuse me. And say that the 68 hundredths. Now what I can do is it's 68 hundredths, it's over 100, so I know it's 68%. And then I can simplify because they're both even. So I can have 34 over 50 to divide them both by 2. I can divide them by 2 again and get 17 over 25. This time I'm going to give you a percent. No, I'm going to start out with a decimal this time, sorry. Let's go with 0.01. All right, so that is 1/100th. Because again, I just say it out loud. And 1/100th is, it's over 100, so I know it's going to be 1%. Okay, I hope that helps. And if you have any questions, please post them on Edmodo.